A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a landmark decision that could reshape the landscape of U.S. trade policy, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit ruled against President Donald Trump's sweeping import tariffs, declaring them unlawful. The ruling, delivered in a narrow 7-4 vote, concluded that Trump had overstepped his authority by invoking emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, to impose these tariffs. The court emphasized that the IEPA, enacted in 1977, was never intended to grant presidents the unilateral power to impose taxes or tariffs, a responsibility that the Constitution reserves for Congress. The judges highlighted that tariff authority is a critical legislative function, akin to taxation, and cannot be broadly delegated to the executive branch without clear statutory language. The court pointed out that Congress deliberately excluded terms like tariff, duty, or tax when drafting the IEPA, leading to the conclusion that Trump had overreached in his attempt to reshape global trade policy. The tariffs, announced as part of Trump's Liberation Day initiative in early 2025, included a 10% baseline tariff on nearly all imports, along with additional reciprocal tariffs aimed at countries such as China, Mexico, and Canada. These tariffs were justified by the Trump administration as necessary measures to combat economic threats related to fentanyl trafficking and to address foreign trade imbalances. Trump positioned the tariffs as a cornerstone of his second-term economic strategy, asserting that they would revitalize American manufacturing, reduce dependence on foreign goods, and compel U.S. trading partners to renegotiate trade agreements that were more favorable to the United States. Unlike previous tariffs imposed under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, which covered specific sectors like steel and aluminum, these new tariffs relied solely on the IEPA, opening them up to legal challenges. Following the announcement of the tariffs, multiple lawsuits were filed against the administration. The Liberty Justice Center, representing small businesses, including wine importer VOS Selections, argued that the tariffs were unconstitutional and detrimental to small enterprises. Concurrently, 12 Democratic-led states filed suit, claiming that the president's use of emergency powers unlawfully undermined state economies and international trade arrangements. In May 2025, the Court of International Trade ruled against the Trump administration, stating that the IEPA did not authorize the president to impose tariffs of such a broad scope. The CIT issued a nationwide injunction blocking the tariffs, but the Trump administration appealed the decision, bringing the case before the Federal Circuit. On August 29, 2025, the Federal Circuit consolidated the lawsuits and issued its ruling, reaffirming the lower court's finding that Congress had never granted the president expansive tariff authority under the IEPA. The majority opinion stressed that imposing taxes or duties on this scale necessitated explicit congressional approval, especially considering the constitutional separation of powers. While the court blocked Trump's use of IEPA for these tariffs, it opted not to strike them down immediately. Instead, the ruling was stayed until October 14, 2025, allowing the administration time to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. In dissent, four judges contended that the IEPA's broad emergency provisions could be interpreted as granting presidents the authority to regulate imports through tariffs in extraordinary circumstances. However, their arguments did not prevail in the majority opinion. Despite the court's ruling, the tariffs remain in effect due to the delayed enforcement, meaning that businesses, consumers, and U.S. trading partners must continue to navigate the existing tariff structure until at least mid-October. This temporary reprieve is crucial for the Trump administration, which has leveraged the tariffs in ongoing trade negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had previously indicated that discussions with allies such as the European Union, United Kingdom, and Japan could conclude by Labor Day. However, the appeals court decision has complicated the timeline, as foreign governments are now seeking clarity on whether the tariffs will withstand legal scrutiny. The White House swiftly defended the president's actions, asserting that the tariffs were lawfully imposed to protect national and economic security. Administration officials cautioned that suspending the tariffs could undermine U.S. credibility in trade talks and provoke retaliation from other nations. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick filed a statement with the court warning that overturning the tariffs could unravel agreements already reached with major allies. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed that the Justice Department would appeal the ruling to the Supreme Court, setting the stage for a significant legal battle that could redefine the limits of presidential authority under the IEEPA. The uncertainty surrounding the tariffs has already begun to impact U.S. businesses. Importers of consumer goods, small retailers, and manufacturers reliant on foreign components are facing higher costs due to the duties. If the tariffs remain in place, businesses have warned of potential price increases that could ripple across various sectors, from electronics to food and beverages. On the international front, trading partners are reevaluating their negotiations with the United States. Some foreign governments have indicated they may hold off on committing to new trade terms until a final Supreme Court ruling is issued. Others are contemplating retaliatory measures if the U.S. maintains tariffs they deem unlawful. Beyond the immediate trade implications, the ruling carries significant constitutional weight. Legal experts argue that it reaffirms the principle that major economic powers reside with Congress, not the presidency. While past presidents have utilized emergency powers broadly, this case illustrates the judiciary's willingness to impose limits when executive actions encroach on core constitutional functions like taxation. Neil Katyal, the plaintiff's attorney, characterized the ruling as a constitutional safeguard, ensuring that no president can unilaterally impose sweeping taxes. If the Supreme Court upholds this decision, it could permanently alter the balance of power between Congress and the White House regarding trade and economic policy. The Federal Circuit's ruling against Trump's use of emergency powers for tariffs signifies a critical juncture in U.S. trade law and constitutional governance. As the administration prepares its appeal, the future of the tariffs hangs in the balance, with the potential for far-reaching consequences for Trump's economic strategy and the scope of presidential power in trade and taxation matters. Until a final decision is reached, businesses, consumers, and America's trading partners must navigate an uncertain landscape shaped by tariffs that may not withstand the legal challenges ahead. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.